What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic, wow, how Eddie Hearn and Triller forced Top Rank and PBC to make the Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter fight. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
Got the money for minutes, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life for riches, huh? That life for riches, huh? Pretty bitch, show me titties, huh? And I got the glazzy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. So, the Terence Crawford, Shawn Porter fight has been confirmed. Now, this fight, you know, has been playing out for the past year and a half almost now. And finally, looks like Top Rank and PBC has decided to cross the street and make this fight happen. Okay, now, there's a couple of things that we got to analyze about this whole situation with Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. I've done a couple of videos on it, and you know, I'm doing another one, okay, and I'm going to be doing a few more as the fight gets nearer. So, but before we get into all of the details of what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to have to set the stage. So, let's set the stage. Take a look at this, okay? Here we go.
And I'm here to do this as long as I can and be on top as long as I can.
I have to throw it out there. Where does Crawford fall in line? You potentially fighting him?
Myself and Terence, you know, if that fight is made, it's going to be made because myself and Terence want that fight made. You know, I'm not calling him out. I respect him. I'm not afraid of him. But I will tell you that he is definitely overlooked in the welterweight division and definitely one of the best fighters out there in the world.
Is the Spence you fought last September at Staples, would that guy beat Crawford, or from what you know?
That guy was very good. Mm-hmm. He was good to the point where the last round, we came in, we touched gloves. Normally it just touch gloves and you fight, but I touched gloves with him and I said, good shit, boy, because the work was that good and the night was that good and that competitive, and I wanted it, and I could tell that he wanted it too. Does that fighter beat Terence Crawford? That fighter was strong. That fighter was very good. I saw some holes. I saw that I was a step ahead of him a majority of that fight. And with saying that, no, I don't think that fighter can beat Terence Crawford. But I've already said that in a match, I don't think Errol Spence could beat Terence Crawford. I think that Terence wins that fight. I think he's got more in his arsenal.
Let's see what's going on.
All right, 1 second. I've got Kenny Porter on the line. Yeah, I'm doing a live chat. My quick thing I want to ask from you, sir, right? Like we're doing the top 5 welterweights in the world, current welterweights in the world. So of the current welterweights in the world, what would be your rating, sir? Where would you rank the fighters, roughly?
You catch me off guard. But,
all right.
I'm gonna say Terence Crawford.
Okay.
Errol Spence.
Okay.
Shawn Porter.
Okay.
Well, nobody in the alley but me and Bud. And Bud didn't back down. I just had to say, all right, I'm gonna just walk this one off, Bud. because Bud is the truth. Bud is the real deal, Holyfield, whatever you want to say. I know it. I squared up with him in an alley, and we faced off, and he had his knuckles, both of them, as tight as he could get them, and he went, huh?
As well?
Nah, that was Colorado, OTC. And that's who he is. So when you can do it in front of thousands and thousands of people in pay-per-view, that's great. But when you by yourself, and you ain't got nobody there with you, and I'm 6 weight classes more than you, and you standing there like, yeah, let's go. He's the real deal.
Okay, there we go. That's high praise, okay, from Ken Porter. High praise from Ken Porter. And not just high praise from Ken Porter, but also high praise from Shawn Porter. So both Shawn Porter and his father, Ken Porter, view Terence Crawford in, you know, with high respect. Okay, we can see that from the clips. I just played those clips, you know, from the horse's mouth, Kenny Porter and Shawn Porter, and we saw, you know. So, I mean, Ken Porter has Terence Crawford rated as #1 pound for pound above his own son, Shawn Porter. We just heard it, okay? So what we're really seeing here is that the respect from both Shawn Porter and Kenny Porter when it comes to Terence Crawford is high, okay? Maximum respect. There's no doubt about that because we're hearing from their own mouth. Nope, we're not hearing from somebody else, okay? So now the question, you know, becomes, based on, you know, that situation in terms of their respect for Terence Crawford, what are we to expect in this upcoming fight between Crawford and Porter? Right? We're looking at what Porter and Crawford, what Porter and Shawn Porter and Ken Porter, what they think about Terence Crawford. This is the guy Shawn Porter is getting ready to fight. And so we're seeing how they view Terence Crawford. So based on how they view Terence Crawford, I'm curious to know what kind of strategy they're going to come in to win this fight against Terence Crawford, because we just heard what they said. And, you know, it's hard to really, you know, jive what they're saying with the fact that Shawn Porter is expected to possibly win this fight. Based on what we see them saying, I mean, it doesn't really look like they, you know, they think they can beat Crawford. But, you know, we don't know. You know, style makes fights, okay? And Shawn Porter said himself out of his own mouth, I should have, you know, I should have that clip, but I don't have that right now. But Shawn Porter said, in his, you know, out of his own mouth, that he believed that he could knock out Terence Crawford, even with all of what he said about Terence Crawford. Now, that's interesting, you know, perspective from Shawn Porter. But let's take a closer look. So, why is it that, you know, people out there saying that this is going to be Terence Crawford's toughest fight? And what is that really based on? Okay, especially after we saw what Shawn Porter and his dad just said about Terence Crawford. What is it based on that Terence Crawford is going to, you know, have his toughest fight against Shawn Porter? What? Well, the only reason that people are saying that right now, and, you know, most of the people are saying that is basically Errol Spence fans, okay? Now, I'm not saying that it's not going to be a tough fight. We don't know yet. But the people who are saying it's going to be Crawford's toughest fight, the only reason they're really saying that is because of what Shawn Porter, you know, did against Errol Spence. Because if you all remember, according to Errol Spence himself, and according to the general consensus among Errol Spence's fans, Shawn Porter was the perfect match for Errol Spence, and that Errol Spence was going to knock him out. Errol Spence said himself, and most of his fans actually believe that that was going to happen. They believe that the way Shawn Porter fight is the perfect style for Errol Spence to knock him out. Okay, so not many people actually believed that Shawn Porter was going to be able to put up a, you know, a fight against Errol Spence. They thought it was going to be an easy knockout. And we have to remember that this was after Errol Spence had just fought Mikey Garcia, and he was supposed to knock out Mikey Garcia, who came up from lightweight to fight him, or from super lightweight to fight him. And he didn't knock out Mikey Garcia either. And he didn't knock out Shawn Porter. We all saw the fight. It was his most difficult fight to date. You know, so Errol Spence had his toughest fight of his career against Shawn Porter. So Showtime Shawn Porter showed, you know, that he was no pushover. Okay. And, you know, after that fight with Errol Spence, in the eyes of the fans and in the boxing community, Shawn Porter was elevated to a different level. As a matter of fact, Shawn Porter got more respect in his, you know, in the fight, after the fight against Errol Spence, than he ever had in his whole career. And simply because, he, you know, some will even argue that he won that fight against Errol Spence, despite the knockdown that, you know, Errol Spence gave him in the, I think it was 11th round. So that was his best performance to date, Shawn Porter, I would say. And he really showed his stuff against Errol Spence. So with that fight, you know, in the books, after that fight, people started saying, wow, you know, Shawn Porter is no joke. So this is what they're basing it on, that he's going to give Terence Crawford his toughest fight. They're basing it on the fight against Errol Spence. Okay. Now, is that necessarily going to be the, you know, what happens? I don't think so. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily follow that just because Errol Spence's toughest fight was Shawn Porter, that Crawford's toughest fight is going to be Shawn Porter. That doesn't follow. It's not necessarily so. And, you know, we're gonna see, you know, when this fight comes. Now, based on, you know, everything that we know so far, the pertinent question is, can Shawn Porter beat Terence Crawford? Well, we don't know if he can or not. I mean, it's a possibility, but it's not likely. Okay, and there's a lot of things we can base it on. You know, all the fights that, you know, Terence Crawford, Shawn Porter had previously. Okay. And, you know, but based on what we know at this point, and even based on, you know, Shawn Porter's own words and his trainer, which is his father's own words, this is going to be his toughest fight, not the Errol Spence fight. Okay, this fight is going to be Shawn Porter's toughest fight, based on what we know at this point about both fighters so far. So now let's talk about how this fight got made, because as you all know, and I've reported this before, the only reason this fight was made is because Terence Crawford kept calling out Errol Spence, and the Errol Spence Protection Brigade, you know, went into action and tried to protect Errol Spence against Shawn Porter. There was all kind of excuses made by, protect him against Terence Crawford. There was all kind of excuses made about the fight, not, you know, why the fight should happen. All these people out there from the LDBC and some other YouTubers went out and tried to, talk about how the fight shouldn't happen. We even heard, you know, Phantom Boxing, you know, went on his channel and was crying, I mean, literally crying tears out of his eyes about why the fight shouldn't happen, because Terence Crawford said something about the Errol Spence crash, that he hurt himself in that crash. And, Terence Crawford said that Errol Spence must have lost some marbles because he was demanding 60-40 split. And, you know, Phantom Boxing went on his live and actually cried on the air and said that this fight should not be made because he don't like what Terence Crawford said about Errol Spence. You know, that's his life. He could have lost it. A whole bunch of nonsense. Okay? So that was the general consensus among Errol Spence fans. They didn't want that fight to happen between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence for whatever reasons. Okay? And they kept making excuses. Errol Spence himself kept making excuse after excuse after excuse, to the point where, you know, he was making up a new excuse almost every day. You know, on the other side of the street, you know, he hasn't fought nobody. And, you know, of all the ones that was the dumbest excuse that I've ever heard of is the one about Terence Crawford not fighting anybody. You understand what I'm saying? He didn't fight nobody at welterweight, and he have to prove himself at welterweight. Well, when Mikey Garcia fought Errol Spence, he came up from, you know, junior welterweight, I believe, actually lightweight. He was in between lightweight and super lightweight when he moved up to fight Errol Spence. And nobody said that he had to prove himself at welterweight. He didn't fight anybody at welterweight before he fought Errol Spence. And the split was 50-50. He didn't do anything at welterweight. But nobody was opposed to that fight. Why? Because they thought that Errol Spence, I mean, when I say nobody, I'm talking about Errol Spence's man fans and his, you know, the LDBC and the rest of those characters out there. They wasn't opposed to that fight like they are opposed to the Terence Crawford Errol Spence fight, because simply they thought that Errol Spence was going to knock out Mikey Garcia. And that's, you know, that's what they like. They like Errol Spence to have fights where they know he's going to win. So they were all for that fight. Nobody was saying that Mikey Garcia got to prove himself at welterweight, or that he couldn't get 50-50, which he got, okay, or that he was on the other side of the street, or, you know, a host of all the reasons, you know, 60, 70, 30, 80, 20. You don't hear none of that from Errol Spence in the Mikey Garcia fight. Nothing at all. They made the fight. It was 50-50. Errol Spence won the fight, but he didn't knock out Mikey Garcia as his fans expected. Okay? So this is how, you know, when Terence Crawford moved up from 140, undisputed, and now remember, he was undisputed at 140. Mikey Garcia wasn't undisputed when he came up to fight Errol Spence, okay? Not even close. He wasn't even unified, okay? Didn't even have a title. But nobody said he had to prove himself at welterweight before he fought Errol Spence, okay? Why not? He had less accolades moving up than Crawford did, who was a unified, who was an undisputed champion at 140 and moved up and called out everybody at welterweight. But nobody, you know, said that, you know, that Mikey couldn't fight Errol Spence because he didn't do anything at welterweight yet. But they used that excuse against Terence Crawford, the undisputed champion at 140 that moved up and went to fight Errol Spence. They said, oh, you haven't fought anybody. Of all the reasons that they, you know, well, I should say not reasons, but excuses that Errol Spence gave, that was the dumbest one. Because nobody have ever heard of that before. Okay, just like nobody ever heard of, you know, across the street. I mean, these excuses are ridiculous. How many times have fighters moved up, you know, from a lower weight to fight a fighter at a higher weight and, you know, just go right to the title fight? Nobody says, oh, they got to prove themselves at that weight. The whole idea is ridiculous. Okay? So, but this is what, you know, we were hearing from the Errol Spence fans out there and, you know, his man fans as well. So, with all those excuses, the fight never happened. Errol Spence never made that fight with Terence Crawford. So, they kept putting, you know, Shawn Porter, they kept pushing Shawn Porter out in front of Errol Spence and say, no. First they did it with Kell Brook and, you know, Kell Brook got knocked out. Then they pushed Shawn Porter out in front, saying, no, you got to fight Shawn Porter before you fight Errol Spence. You got to prove yourself first. You haven't fought nobody. You know, the whole nonsense, the whole 9 yards with the excuses. And so this is how we got this fight, okay? Now, with all of the hoopla that was being created around, you know, Errol Spence, or excuse me, Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter, you know, trying to protect Errol Spence again, the fight picked up steam, you know, and then eventually Shawn Porter realizing that, hey, the people are calling for this fight. The fight, it seems to be trending. His name is out there in the mix. He decided, okay, I'm going to take this up and run with it. And so he started talking about, oh, yeah, I want to fight Terence Crawford. But again, you know, as I covered, you know, my previous videos, he never really made any serious move towards making that fight. You know, he was just basically talking and, you know, keeping his name in the mix, and he was getting notoriety and publicity. And, you know, as we all know, there's no such thing as bad publicity. You know, free publicity is free publicity, so why not go for it? So that's what he was doing. And he was getting his name called out. They're trying to drive up his value because he had lost his title to Errol Spence. Didn't actually have a title right now. And so mixing up his name with, you know, people like Crawford and, you know, the top echelons of the welterweight division kept Shawn Porter relevant. Okay? And as I said, a lot of this is being driven by Errol Spence fans who, you know, they actually want Shawn Porter to beat Terence Crawford so that Terence Crawford never get to Errol Spence. Okay? This is what this whole thing is about at the end of the day. Okay? They want Shawn Porter to stop Terence Crawford so that he does not get to Errol Spence. This is why they pushed him out in front of Errol Spence. This fight that should be going on right now should be Errol Spence and Terence Crawford fight. That fight should happen 2 years ago, 3 years ago now. Okay? The biggest money fight in the welterweight division in boxing. That fight should have happened a long time ago. But at the rate we're going and the way it looks right now, we're not going to get that fight because Errol Spence, you know, has injuries. And at this point, you know, it's a question as to whether Errol Spence is damaged goods. He might never be the same again. Okay? Might never fight again as far as we know. Hopefully that's not the case, but that it might happen. He might never fight again. Okay. And if he does fight again, and and he was to fight, say, a Terence Crawford, people are going to say, oh, this and that, and he got injured in the car accident, blah blah this. So basically, right now, Errol Spence, has gone from being relevant in the welterweight division, and to being, in the rear view mirror, basically. Okay, the welterweight division is moving forward. There's a lot of talent in the welterweight division. Okay. And the welterweight division doesn't really need Errol Spence at the end of the day. Okay, it's a stacked division. A lot of people there, a lot of up and coming fighters right now. So anything could happen. And right now, Terence Crawford fighting Shawn Porter is the biggest fight in the welterweight division in years. And we're gonna see that this fight is gonna garner a lot of attention. Now, the question I think we have to ask now is, can Shawn Porter, Showtime Shawn Porter, beat Terence Crawford? Well, sure, why not? Anything is possible. But again, it's not about what's possible, it's about what's likely. Okay? It's about, is it likely to happen? And my answer to that question, would be that no, it's not likely to happen that Shawn Porter is going to beat Terence Crawford, simply because when we look at the the competition out there, when we look at the style of fighting that Terence Crawford has and the style that Shawn Porter has, it's going to be a difficult fight for Shawn Porter. But, let's not get into that right now. Basically, we got to talk about how this fight was made. We know how the fight was started out to be made with, the ducking and all that of Errol Spence. But in reality, PBC didn't really want this fight with Terence Crawford, I don't think. And I don't think Shawn Porter wanted to fight either. But they were forced to make this fight by the WBO because the WBO mandated this fight. People want to forget that Shawn Porter was mandatory to Terence Crawford for over a year and did nothing to advance the fight. Okay, he just stayed at the mandatory, and then when they moved him, when they dropped him down a position below Virgil Ortiz, he was like he didn't know what happened. Well, you was a mandatory for over a year. By WBC rules, you are mandatory for a year, and if you want to maintain your position, you got to either fight the champion, activate your mandatory, or fight somebody a rank below you, okay? That which would have been Virgil Ortiz, to maintain your position. So the reason why Shawn was dropped below Ortiz because he didn't fight Crawford and he didn't fight Ortiz. So he was dropped and below Ortiz, and Ortiz moved up. But like I said previously, Ortiz didn't want to fight with Crawford either. He's talking about fighting Crawford. He mentioned Crawford's name after he wins the fight. But his camp, when they asked his camp about really, what is, if this fight is going to happen, they said, no, he's not ready for Crawford. Give him about 1 or 2 more years. The person I was asking for the fight, with Crawford was really Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy, head honcho. And Ortiz fights on the Golden Boy. So he was asking for the fight, but he was talking about it. But when they went and talked to the team that's actually, working with Ortiz, they said, oh, no, he's not ready yet. So, it was all talk. So that didn't happen either. Now, enter the WBO. WBO decided that for whatever reason, who knows, I don't know if somebody put pressure on them, if it was Terence Crawford, probably was. And out of nowhere, the fight between Crawford and Shawn Porter was mandated by the WBO. So now this fight has to be made. And it could either be made by Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter and their teams, respectively, Top Rank and PBC, or he was going to go to purse bid. And if he went to purse bid, people like Eddie Hearn, Ryan Kavanaugh from Triller Fight Club would have had an opportunity, and other, even MT Global, other companies could have had an opportunity to bid for this fight. Okay, now Top Rank and PBC wasn't really doing nothing to make the fight, and they still haven't really done work together to make this fight, even though the fight is going to happen. What happened is that Top Rank, you know, who, based on their contract with Terence Crawford, this is going to be his last fight for Top Rank, didn't really want to spend the money on the fight. PBC, I don't think, you know, want to work with Top Rank for whatever reason, so they didn't want to put any money into this fight either. Okay, but you know, the fact that Eddie Hearn expressed an interest in this fight, and Triller, you know, was talking about bidding, this kind of forced Top Rank and PBC to make this fight, to keep it under their control. Because if they didn't, either Triller or Eddie Hearn was going to get this fight. And you know, my thing is this. I think that Eddie Hearn wanted to bid. I think he really was motivated to bid on this fight because I think he wants to sign Terence Crawford. And more than likely, whoever had picked up the fight would probably sign not just Terence Crawford, but both fighters. Okay? Because they could have had options, you know, requests or demanded options on both fighters, you know, future fights, which would be fine with Terence Crawford, I don't think. I think because, you know, he's done with Top Rank and he's probably looking to get either signed or become a independent, okay, and just kind of, you know, fight whoever is out there, you know, with whoever giving the most money. So, but I think Eddie Hearn is interested in signing him, and that would be a perfect opportunity for Eddie Hearn to show Terence Crawford, if he had the chance to pick up the fight in the first bid, to show Terence Crawford how, you know, Matchroom and the Zone would deal with a guy the caliber of Terence Crawford in terms of, you know, respect for his accolades and his abilities and what he has accomplished in the ring. Okay, Eddie Hearn, I think, would have showed Terence Crawford that, and I think Terence Crawford probably, you know, based on whatever the experience was with Eddie Hearn and the Zone on top and Matchroom, he probably would have signed with them for a couple of fights. I wouldn't. I mean, I don't see anything reason why he shouldn't have. And the same thing could happen for Shawn Porter as well. Okay, they both could have, you know, signed for a couple of future fights with the Zone Matchroom if they had picked up the fight in the first bid. And this is what Top Rank and PBC didn't want. You know, it's like they don't want to really invest in Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford, but they don't want Triller or Eddie Hearn to pick up, you know, either Shawn Porter or Terence Crawford either. Both of them don't want that to happen. Okay, so it's like, you know, it's like, you know, you have a girl and, you know, she's a girl and you mess around with her once in a while, but you're not really into her like that. But you don't want nobody else to have her either. Okay, and so you keep her around. So this is what's going on with you know, the PBC, Top Rank, and Errol Spence. I mean, not Errol Spence, Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford. So basically, Top Rank and PBC was forced to make. And now the interesting thing is that they didn't even work together on this fight, because what happened is that Top Rank, well, actually PBC said they didn't even want to work on the fight. They didn't want to do a co-promotion fight with Top Rank. So they let Top Rank do all the work and, you know, put the fight on ESPN. Okay. Basically, PBC is letting Shawn Porter go across the street. Okay. And whatever happens over there happens. Okay. PBC is, you know, basically washing their hands of the fight, and they're letting Top Rank run this whole thing. They're not going to get any co-promotion, nothing. They're going to get anything from this fight, basically. So why is that? Why is PBC doing that? Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it, but again, you know, they rather do that than have Eddie Hearn or Triller pick up Shawn Porter and then put options on him, okay, and have him fight for their platform, which there'll be a lot of good fight for Shawn Porter in England, okay, against, you know, European fighters. That would be a big opportunity for Shawn Porter, and the same thing for Errol, for Terence Crawford as well, okay. a lot of options, good fights over there in England with some of the British fighters. You know, good money, good promotion, good marketing, which, you know, neither fighter, Shawn Porter or Terence Crawford, is getting from their respective promotional outfits, because PBC don't really have anything for Shawn Porter. What if he didn't have this Terence Crawford fight? Who would he be fighting? I mean, you know, he'd have to go out there and try to hunt for a fight. Really, he don't fought mostly everybody already, and on the PBC side. So, you know, what is there for Shawn Porter at PBC besides this fight with Terence Crawford across the street? So they let him go across the street to see what he could do over there, and this is what's going on. So this is how this fight came about. Okay, it's, you know, I hear a lot of people out there, you know, especially some of these guys like, you know, Boxing Negro. I heard him out there talking about, oh, people were saying that Porter didn't want this fight, but look, he's making the fight. And I just want to remind people and let them know, I'm not going to let them forget what they said about Porter not wanting. Yo, the record is clear. There's nothing for you. You know, what is this guy talking about? It's a clear, everybody knows what's happened with this fight. Shawn Porter was the manager for over a year and didn't make the fight. The fight wasn't made by Shawn Porter. It was made by the WBO. WBO forced this fight. So whatever this guy is talking about over there about setting the record straight, reminding people, or, you know, it's just pure nonsense, because him, you know, he himself is one of the people that didn't want this fight to happen between Terence Crawford and Errol Spence, and this is why the Shawn Porter fight is happening. Okay, he was one of the guys out there saying that, oh, Shawn Porter, you know, Terence Crawford got to fight somebody. He didn't fight nobody. You know, he should be 60-40 in Errol Spence's favor. Or, you know, or the fight, you know, the fight shouldn't happen. You know, all this nonsense. Okay, now he's out there saying, oh, well, you know, people were saying that Shawn Porter didn't want the fight. But look, Shawn Porter wanted to fight. The fight he's making. No, Shawn Porter's not making the fight. The fight was made by WBO. Okay, let's be clear about that. And so, you know, people got to stop with the nonsense. Okay, I mean, you know, they're trying to rewrite history right now, you know, about how this fight was made. As if Shawn Porter, you know, was pushing for the fight, but he wasn't really doing that. Okay, he was talking about the fight. Okay, and he kept talking and talking and talking until the WBO said, okay, you want to fight? Let's make this fight then, because you're not going to make it on your own, it looks like. So, and they still didn't make the fight on their own. Even after WBO mandated the fight, okay, the fight was going to purse bid. These guys couldn't come together and negotiate on the fight. They still didn't do it. It had to be forced because Triller and Eddie Hearn was going to pick up the fight. Either one of them was going to pick up the fight, and PBC and Top Rank didn't want that to happen. So they jumped in and, you know, snatched the fight away from the purse bid at the last minute. Literally at the last minute. Okay, so Top Rank and PBC is not really working together on this fight. Okay, it's only Top Rank that's doing the fight, because PBC don't want no parts of it. Basically, they still can't work together with Top Rank. Okay, on this fight again. So, but here we are. So the fight is made now, and we're gonna see what happened. You know, a lot of people out there, you know, are hoping that, like I said, like they're hoping that Shawn Porter beats Terence Crawford, because, you know, the way it's looking right now, you know, if which is probably what's going to happen, if Terence Crawford beats Shawn Porter, which is probably the likely scenario, then he's going to have a lot of momentum in the welterweight. Who is he going to fight next after that? You got Ugas out there. You got Manny Pacquiao still out there, claiming that he wants a rematch with Ugas. Errol Spence is still not going to be ready to fight, I don't think, anytime soon. Probably Errol Spence probably won't be ready to fight until maybe almost the end of 2022. If he's gonna fight again. He might not fight again. It might be the end of Errol Spence as far as we know. And again, I'm gonna say I hope that doesn't happen, but you know, it is what it is. At this point, Errol Spence, you know, could be damaged goods. Okay, like the way, you know, Caleb Brook was damaged goods with his eye and all of that. Errol Spence didn't break his eye socket. Didn't break his eye socket, but he you know, from my hearing, it's a detached retina. And then, you know, he might have other issues as far as we know. We don't know. Okay, we didn't see nothing show really again in the Danny Garcia fight. He looked like he was okay to a certain degree, but we don't know about the retina business. If that happened after, it probably happened after that. And at this point, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with Errol Spence. He's basically kind of, you know, on the sidelines right now. So that leaves a, you know, a clear path for Terence Crawford to move forward. Now the thing is, will Ugas fight Crawford if Manny Pacquiao doesn't do the rematch? We don't know. That would be the biggest money fight for Ugas. But as we all know, you know, Ugas wanted to fight Crawford when he was the interim WBA champion. Crawford didn't take that fight for whatever reason. Crawford, I think, wanted to. At that point, Crawford, you know, was saying that it's an interim belt. He didn't really care about no interim belt. You know, he was gunning for Manny Pacquiao, and you know, he wanted the big belt, the one that Manny Pacquiao had that before they stripped him. So he wanted the WBA super belt, and he wanted to fight Manny Pacquiao for that. He didn't want to fight Ugas for the interim belt. But to me, that was probably a tactical mistake on Terence Crawford's part. He should have took that fight with Ugas, because after the fight, if you'd have won the fight against Ugas, when they stripped Manny Pacquiao, he would have been granted the WBA super belt instead of Ugas. Okay, he would have got the belt. But, you know, again, to me, it's a tactical mistake. He should have fought Ugas for that interim belt. But that's neither here nor there. Now we're in a whole different situation now. Now Ugas is the main guy, and at the WBA, and that fight between him and Crawford will be a big fight. You know, I would think be a money fight. You know, but let's see what happened with Ugas. We don't know what he's going to do. More than likely, if I'm Ugas, I'm going to hold out for the Manny Pacquiao rematch. It's an easier fight than Crawford, and it's probably, you know, another big money fight for him. So that will be another fight in the bank with Manny, the legend. People have been trying to fight Manny now, you know, that's Spence and Crawford, and they haven't been able to fight him once, and Ugas is getting the possible opportunity to fight him twice. So if I was him, I would be holding out for that fight, you know, against any other fight. And then after that fight, I would consider my options against Crawford or whoever else is out there. So that's the route I see Ugas taking. You know, that's the path I think he's going to go on. So after Crawford and Porter fight, you know, we're going to see what's out there for Crawford or Porter, depending on who wins. You know, you got up-and-coming fights, you know, up-and-coming fighters, you know, out there that could challenge Terence Crawford if he wins. You know, you got the former undisputed Josh Taylor. I think he wants to fight Terence Crawford. That fight could happen in 2022. Okay. You got Ugas, like I said, he might, you know, that fight may happen in 2022. Okay. You got, you know, Virgil Ortiz. You got, you know, Ennis. You got a couple of good welterweights out there. Okay. So there's a lot of fights out there for Terence Crawford once he, you know, finishes this fight with Shawn Porter. And if he wins this fight, you know, he's going to be away from Top Rank. People are going to be bidding for his services. He probably could get some good fights in Europe with, you know, with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom and DAZN. So the sky's the limit for Terence Crawford at this point, you know, if he wins the fight against Shawn Porter. So, you know, let's see what happens. But I'm not going to go into who's going to win the fight. I'm not going to analyze it. I'm not going to do a pre-fight analysis until we get closer to the fight. So as the fight gets closer, I'll be doing, you know, my pre-fight analysis and talking about who I think is going to win the fight. But at this point, I just wanted to talk about and set the record straight as far as how this fight came about. You know, because there's a lot of people out there trying to do rewrite history on what happened with this fight, and you know, we're not going to let that happen. So I'm going to leave it there for right now. So, you know, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Go to the website, WTBEboxing.com. You know, check out the merchandise. Check out the Patreon membership. I got Cash App. If you want to donate to the channel, you can go ahead and donate. But I think that's about it for right now. And so we're going to leave it there, and I'll see you on the next one.
Got them out of a man, it's pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That life before riches, huh? That life before riches, huh? Pretty bitch showing me titties, huh? And I got the glazy run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.